But we have a lot to get into. B-Mate gets in there. I can't lie. I couldn't even boo Double J last night because of the story you told. Yeah, there's a hell of an endorsement of the stories I told about Jeff Jarrett last night. But I would also say that I don't know if Jeff was supposed to I don't know if Jeff was supposed to be a heel last night. I would say that. I don't know if that's the case. But should we start there? You want to start there? Let's start there. I'll start there. So this whole thing has been built up. I've called Jeff Jarrett the conscience of WWE. I saw him. Somebody called him something else last night on Twitter. I can't think of what it was. The conscience of WWE. That's what we. The conscience of AEW, I should say. He was never the conscience of WWE. The conscience of AEW is kind of how I refer to Jeff Jarrett. And, the Owen tournament and not winning it, but wanting to make sure that the right person was representing Owen, was representing winning that tournament, to go on to All In, to become the number one contender to Swerve's heavyweight championship. And he's been testing Bryan, and he's talked to Bryan, and there's a respect level there. And they did some great video packages leading into the match. And I loved that last night they did packages 2 different times during the show before the main event. It's a very simple thing to do. Just remind your fans, hey, this is what you have to look forward to later. And I don't like when commentators, and every show has been guilty of this, for God's sakes, and I don't blame Tony Schiavone, the amount of stuff that back in the day, the WCW's announcers had to talk about with NWO and Hogan and all that stuff when other matches were going on where they would basically ignore them would drive me nuts. I know that was the directive from Bischoff, and hey, they did well at times. I think it takes you out of matches when you have that kind of commentary. But reminders. Hey, here's what's coming up. Here's why it's a big deal. Keep an eye on this. It's a backstage promo. It's a prepackaged segment, whatever it be. They did that a couple times last night and told you why. I loved Bryan explaining, looking ahead to All In, looking ahead to the night his career could end. But hey, I respect Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff Jarrett is the one when I need to be pushed. I need to be checked. I need to be ready. Who better to do it than a man who's done everything in this business? I like that. That was good stuff. So what I liked in one of the packages they showed was that Jeff said it's much bigger than a win and a loss. I like that. I was a big fan of that because it is. And I actually think that's a great line to use because there has been a lot of people in wrestling over the last probably month or so, and even more than that, that do a lot of this and then don't back it up in the ring because they're too worried about a win or a loss when everything they talked about was not about wins or losses. And yes, I'm referring to the Drew and Punk thing. And I still am baffled about how ridiculous Punk sounded on Monday. But when Jeff said it's bigger than a win or loss, he was not trying to beat Bryan Danielson last night. He was trying to prepare Bryan Danielson last night. I think deep down, Jeff's not going to tell you I'm going to lose to the number one contender, but I'm going to put him through everything I can because he's going to have to go through all of that and more to become the AEW World Champion at Wembley. So I love that he said that. It's bigger, much bigger than a win and a loss. And Bryan will tell you that too. I don't even want to call it a warm-up or an exhibition. It was clearly more than that. But these two guys they don't dislike each other, which is funny to say when you think about the match that they had. But I think it all made sense within the story. It's been a very good story. Anybody who's complained about AEW not telling stories has not really watched. And listen, if you've tuned out because of that, sure, okay. But if you're going to keep using that opinion, you can't bring that opinion to the table when there are stories being told. And they're not all good stories, but there are stories being told. And the good stories that are being told are really good right now. And Jeff Jarrett's been telling a story for weeks now, and has Bryan Danielson, and has Swerve. So Danielson makes his entrance in the main event of the show, and I recently mentioned it, that I hope he uses the guitar. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And I'd love to hear what others are thinking about this match in the chat right now. Because I don't know what Swerve's going to do to Danielson at All In. I know what he has done in the past. I know that he has broken into wrestling schools and training areas and Hangman's house and done everything he's needed to do. And what did he do? He became the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. So it's worked. And a quick aside here, Swerve talking to JR, and good to see JR on the show. In that role, in that legend role where his voice matters talking to someone like Swerve. Swerve said something to JR, or JR should say said something to Swerve, where JR brought up the controversial things that Swerve has done. He kept it at that. He didn't go deeper than that. He kept it at that. And why I like that is because so often in wrestling, and it's happened forever, is that when a heel who's done despicable things becomes a babyface, that stuff doesn't get addressed. And I do think in recent years, I think Kevin Owens is a great example of this. You know, I've done some bad stuff. I know that. I can't take that back. I know I have to earn people's respect back. I know I have to earn their trust back. I appreciate when that stuff gets brought up. JR brings up Swerve's, the controversial things he's done. And Swerve kind of said, listen, when you knock at the door and they don't answer, you got to make them answer. So that's why you do those things. And it's not about being proud of those things. It's just saying, I got to do what it takes. This is the whole idea of All In to me. Bryan and Swerve. Tony and Mariah. MJF and Ospreay. Are you really going to go all in? Think about everything that's going into those matches. Are you going to put everything on the line? Are you going to use everything at your disposal to walk out of the biggest show of the year on top? Swerve addressed that with JR. I'm willing to do those things. I've done those things. And guess what? I'm in control now. I love that he said, I'm taking control of this business. I got the big gold title. I got this right here in my hand. I am in control. I also liked, and once again, this is a very straightforward fact by Swerve. Not a heel thing, not a babyface thing. Would anyone care if this was my last match? They care about Bryan Danielson, but would they care if it was me? I don't have that kind of support. He's in a way was saying, I don't have the career that Bryan Danielson's had. I'm a great wrestler. I'm the best in this company right now because I got this big title right here that I won, that I've been defending. So I got to go in with that knowing that people care about him. I like that a lot. That's Swerve understanding his place and going, you know what? I get that people are behind that guy. I don't know if I have that support, and I can't worry about it. He's got a massive chip on his shoulder. He's got big internet ears, and by that I mean he hears everything that the internet has ever said about him. Look at what he posted after he won the title. That man is all about bulletin board material, and whatever works. I wrote when I watched, I said the edge is good. There's an edge to Swerve that it's not hokey, it's not weak baby face. He didn't flip. This is who Swerve is. And people like him for it. In the past, they hated him for it, but now they like him for it, and that's good. Initially, when JR brought up Swerve, bringing the idea of this is going to be your toughest match, and Swerve was like, why? And I didn't like that initially when he said it. That was my first. I was like, whoa. You have to treat it as like your toughest match. It's arguably your greatest opponent. But what did he do? He brought up the fact that he goes, wait a minute. What if his arm gives out It's been broken. His neck's a mess. Think of all the concussions he's been through. I like that. Listen, if you're going to pick a heel in the match, it's Swerve. Swerve's going to get chants. They're going to chant Who's House and all that stuff. But he's saying, hey, look what I can do to those body parts. Who's to say his body won't give up? And what I liked about that is it gave Bryan what Bryan is always going to strive on. Underdog sympathy, babyface sympathy. Can he get through that match? He's willed his body through his career. He's talked about how he's given his body. That was mentioned by the chat yesterday, by those that are contributing to the chat usefully. Who's to say his body doesn't give out against someone like Swerve, who is at the peak of his career as the AEW World Champion? So I thought Swerve, once again, showed a complete understanding of who he is, where he fits in this match. I wrote when I was watching, I said, minimal reverence. He absolutely seems to respect Bryan Danielson more than anybody else that he's faced, and with good reason. But he's not there to kiss the ring. He's not kissing ass. He knows what this match means to him. He knows that this is the biggest match of his career because he is walking into the biggest show of the year as the AEW World Champion. Last year he was in a tag match, which was probably beneath him. This year he walks in as the champion. This year he walks in with a chance to put down arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. One of the most beloved wrestlers of the last 20 years. Swerve knows what that means. There's a responsibility that comes with being the champion. There's a responsibility with being at the top of the company, and there's a responsibility to go, you know what? I put Bryan Danielson down because I had to, and it was my job. This is not a personal thing for Swerve, but it's a task at hand he is willing to accept because that is what it takes to stay on top. And he'll have another opponent after that, or maybe he won't. And at the same time, it will draw more intrigue. It draws more sympathy for Bryan Danielson to beat the person who is at the top right now. Danielson is always somebody who I think gets more praise from everybody else than he does from himself. He knows he's good to a level, but he is not a typical wrestler where it's talk to get myself over, always have that. That's not him. I think that's why people like him. I think that's why people invest in his story and invest in him as a person. I like that Swerve is not looking at this like it's a big celebration, because it's not for him. For Swerve, this is his night to defend his title that he worked hard to get to. No matter what he had to do, he did that. And he can walk out of Wembley with the AEW World Championship and move on. And he can add to his resume that he defended his AEW World Championship at Wembley Stadium in the main event. And oh yeah, I retired Bryan Danielson. Not because I wanted to, but because it was the task at hand for me as a world heavyweight champion. That's how he's coming across. He's saying it with his words. He's saying it with his actions. He's saying it with his demeanor, with his confidence, with his presence. I will be the first one to say I was not a big Swerve fan in WWE. It didn't feel like he was being authentic enough. I thought he was a try-hard too often. And I don't think the booking was great either. And I was very much, let's wait and see in AEW. I was not on board. I got the signing. And it took time. And there were missteps. And there were things that didn't get over. But he's gotten there in the last year. He won me over. I am happy to say I was wrong. And that's credit to him. And that's credit to somebody who continues to evolve, who gets who he is, who knows what it takes. That's on screen and off screen. That makes the match bigger. He absolutely owns the spot. He has earned that spot. He is a main eventer. This is not a first title reign. Let's see how it goes, because it doesn't always go well for people. It's going well for him, and he's in the right spot, and he's the right person in that spot when they get to Wimbledon all in. So getting back to Jeff, I don't want to. I should have went to that first. Jeff and Brian. I love they open with guitar. I love they brawl into the stands. It's exactly what I expected it to be. They fight into the crowd. Jeff's pulling out all the tricks. They're doing a damn suplex up in the mezzanine, the promenade, wherever the hell they were. The crowd was with it. Sometimes you got to do. Sometimes you got to do. If you're watching from home and you're not sure, look and listen to the crowd. See what they're doing. Are they up? Are they with it? Are they chanting? Is there a buzz in the air? That tells me what's working. Now, look, some stuff connects only live, or some stuff only connects on television, and I get that. But the brawling through the crowd and doing it as quickly as they were up, they were with it. You saw the fans, there was no quiet spots. The 57-year-old Jeff Jarrett and Bryan Danielson had them for the right reasons. And I understood that even though they're going to beat the hell out of each other, and Jeff's going to do everything he can because he's Jeff Jarrett and he's sneaky as hell, it was part of it. It was part of getting Brian ready. Brian knew that. Brian knew what he was walking into. You could have a match like that with the brawling and there'd be no ill will. I thought it was fun all around. I love how they used weapons. I love how Brian broke the figure four, how he used the knee to finish. How is no one, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure people will. What a great spot. What a great spot. It looked like, go ahead, bash the legs. We got to break out of it somehow. They didn't do the turnover thing. They bashed the legs. Do what you have to do. He's going to have to do what he has to do. He's going to have to dig deep to beat Swerve, because as we've established, whether I just talked about it or what you saw last night before that match, Swerve's going to do what it takes. Swerve will be, call it controversial. He'll be edgy. He'll be ruthless. Danielson's faced ruthless before. He's been through the ringer. Personally, on screen, as a character, you name it. But hey, let's put you through it one more time before you got to face Swerve. So Brian wins. For I don't know if it was the ear or the chin or whatever. I actually thought Jeff's blood looked cool because I'm pretty sure it wasn't intentional. But just where it was, it looked like he had been through a fight. It wasn't a typical head gig or anything like that. Like, just the way it happened. It looked like he had been through it. And he was beaten up, and Ricky Steamboat's on commentary, and, he's telling the story of Jeff and how much he cares about Brian and what he's seen with Brian. That was a nice voice to have in there of kind of connecting the two stories. And, the picture was put up of the three generations. I think it was put up on the My World Twitter account yesterday, and I saw that, and, that was cool. But that was the end of the match. Jeff Jarrett opened that match hitting Danielson with a guitar. At the end of the match, Danielson hit the knee with the chair on Jeff, and that's the end. And Jeff exits, And Swerve comes out. Now, there's two parts to this. I'll tell the first part. Swerve, once again, let me get out here. Let me talk about this. Let me get in Danielson's head a little bit. Let me play the mind games. I didn't just go through a brawl through this arena. The champ watched this all go down. And they set up the match at Wheeler Yuta. Fine. Let's get Swerve out there. Let's put him through the paces next week. What I did like is what happened after the show. And if you haven't seen it, go see us on AEW socials. And this was one of the things I didn't have a problem with it being on social, because I saw the comments. Most people loved it, but I saw the comments where people were going like, well, that should have been on the show. No, it matters more that it wasn't on the show, because it happened after the show. And if you watch, Jeff's about to get interviewed, and he's with Jay and Karen. I think Sanjay was there, but they're with him. And he starts to talk, and he's talking. Brian's ready. I did what I had to do. I put him through it. And you see him grab Hangman's arm. And initially I was like, well, why would he do that? If you listen, that interview is taking place while Swerve's in the ring with Danielson, because Hangman, as we heard from him earlier in the night, has the tunnel vision. Which is why I put that up as part of our promos today. Hangman has tunnel vision for Swerve. He was going out there. And what was Jeff doing? No. You're not getting involved. That's not your match. So Hangman, because someone got in his way of the man he wants to get to, wails off and nails Jeff and hits him, I think, where he was bleeding. So Jeff goes down. He's pushing everybody else, and they're trying to separate him. And he has fire in his eyes. He's got rage in his eyes because, once again, someone has stopped him from getting to Swerve. He doesn't have Swerve at the pay-per-view, but he doesn't care. He is blinded by that rage for Swerve being the champion. And Jeff doing something as simple as grabbing the arm to stop him pissed him off. Because Jeff knew it wasn't about Swerve and Hangman in that moment. That was about Swerve talking to his opponent at All In. And then Hangman nails Jeff, and here we go. And then we get to Mariah and Toni, and you know what? I liked it. Let there be chaos. You're always, whether it's to sell the match, which may have sold 2 matches, more in a second, or just the fact if you see that, chaos. People love the brawling, and Mariah and Toni haven't stopped. That's good wrestling. 2 stories that have nothing to do with each other. But yeah, people that don't like each other, they're not finding their own hallway to brawl in. No, it just happens to happen. The wrestling backstage can be a chaotic place. It's why the lore of the NXT parking lot is what it is, because shit happens there. Hey, this is Matt Camp. Thanks for checking out one of our recent clips from the Wrestling Mat. Why is someone so close to The Rock kind of throwing Cody under the bus?
Yeah, a lot of people won't engage with Jim Cornette. I did, just because I have a mark for Jim Cornette. And
Please subscribe right now. Hit the like and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And I think you should listen to your TV partners. Let me tell you about WWE and a little insight. More subscribers means more content. And make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMat23 on both Twitter and Instagram.